In this video, we're going to talk about separating mixtures. Now, hopefully you remember what a mixture is. If you remember, it's just when two or more materials or substances are mixed together, but they're not chemically combined. And all that means is that they retain their own properties and they can be separated by physical means. Here are some different ways of separating mixtures, and on the next slides, we're going to go through these in detail. So magnetism, hand separation, filtration, sifting or sieving, extraction and evaporation, and chromatography. So magnetism, I think you guys know what this guy means. It's when one component of your mixture has a magnetic property and the other one doesn't. You can use a magnet to get that magnetic material out. Iron, nickel, cobalt, all these materials are magnetic. Some metals aren't though. Gold, silver, aluminum, these guys aren't. An example in your everyday life of how this would be useful, if you're doing some construction around your house and you have a lot of nails that have fallen to the ground, they make large magnets that you can push just like a broom, and it'll pick up the nails that are on the ground so they don't get thrown in the lawnmower or stuck in your tire and stuff like that. Hand separation. This is literally just what it sounds like. You separate the parts of a mixture by hand. Obviously, this is only useful when the particles are large enough to be seen clearly. One thing I think this could be useful in your everyday life is if you say you don't like something in your food. If, say, you're eating a salad and you don't like onions, well, then you can literally pick them out and not have to eat your onions, right? Filtration. This is when you're separating a solid substance from a fluid, and a fluid can be a liquid or a gas. The air is a fluid, and it prevents something from passing through the porous material, such as a filter, okay? And it works by letting the fluid through, but not the solid. So examples, coffee filter, a cloth, cheesecloth would be an example of that. That's how they make cheese. Your oil filter in your car. You've got a couple examples of some masks here, different varieties. They would let the air go through so you can breathe, but they keep those particles that would make you choke and get in your lungs on the outside. And here's some cupcakes cloths there. Okay, the most common example would be a coffee filter here. It takes the flavor from the coffee beans, passes them through the water, and leaves the beans behind. Sifting or sieving is used to separate dry mixture from another dry mixture, and you're doing that by size, okay? And this would be convenient when you have two different sizes, but they're not so different that you could physically pick it out, okay? The little diagram up here, she's using the sieve to sprinkle powdered sugar on her baked goods and leaving the clumps behind. Another example, when you're little, you might have had a toy that was a little sieve, and you might have taken it to play in sand or a sandbox. Extraction is used to separate an insoluble solid, something that doesn't dissolve, like sand, from a soluble solid, something that does dissolve. So we're talking about sugar or salt. And you do this by adding a solvent, adding a liquid to the mixture, and then pour the liquid through a filter. Most commonly you would add water, okay? Here's an example. So you have sugar, you have sand. You're trying to separate them, okay? One way to do this would be to add some water. We know the sugar would dissolve, the sand wouldn't, okay? We know this because we have beaches, and we have these beautiful beaches, and we can walk on them, and the ocean comes up, and it doesn't dissolve the sand, right? And then what you can do is you could pour that solution through a filter, and the sand would stay in the filter and the sugar water would go straight through. Evaporation is allowing the liquid to evaporate, leaving behind the soluble solid. So for example, if we had that sugar water and we wanted to get the sugar by itself, we could heat that up, and the water would evaporate and the sugar crystals would be left behind. Here's an example of extracting and evaporating together. So we could use water to dissolve the sugar. Then letting the water evaporate, we could leave the sugar behind. The last one we're going to talk about is chromatography, and this is used to separate dissolved substances in a solution from each other. So an example would be like a permanent marker. A permanent marker usually has different color ink in it. Okay, so if you put a dot of permanent marker on chromatography paper, you can use a solvent and separate those different colors. And depending on how large the particles are, is how far they'll move up the paper. And you can see that right here. And here is a look at how it would look in reality. Okay, if you guys have any questions about separating mixtures, bring them to class, please. I will see you then. Bye.